Hello, and welcome to Demonstration 4 for ArcGIS Pro. In this demonstration, I'll be showing you a little bit about the different layouts in the ArcGIS Pro software, and I'll also touch upon the Living Atlas. So the first thing we're going to do is open another project. Go to My Content and go to Africa, and I'll open the DRC Mount project. This is a project I've created previous to this video. Once the project is open, we're brought to a test map, as you can see from the title of the map in the view corner up here. This is because I want to test some things on it, and so what I'm going to do initially is go into the contents and right-click on Test Map. I'll go to Properties, and I'll show you what I'm going to do before I do it actually, so let's press Cancel. I'll zoom out, and as you can see, the world map is in a big square. But if I go to Test Map and go to Properties, I can go on to the extent, use a custom extent. I beg your pardon, we can go on to Coordinate System, and I can enable wrapping around the date line. If I click OK, and then I can scroll continuously across the map, as it's wrapped around the date line. Now, let's go to where we were before. Over the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I want to add a few layers from the Living Atlas, and so if we go to the Catalog pane, we can go to the portal here, and we've got My Content, Group Content, All Portal, which includes public layers that other people have submitted, organizational layers from other organizations, but I want to show you some features from the Living Atlas, and so we'll navigate over to the Living Atlas. This is what you pay for essentially with the ArcGIS Pro. It's a compository of a bunch of different things you can add to your map. For instance, you can go on categories here and select a whole different range. Imagery, this gives you access to lots of sensory images from satellites. Base maps gives you access to all of the base maps in the base maps option, as well as a bunch of other base maps. Infrastructure, environment, boundaries, all sorts of categories. There's so many things that you can add. It takes me days to go through everything. But for this particular demonstration, I'm going to add a multi-hillshade to the map. So I'll search for a multi-hillshade, and then I'm going to add this one, which is Terrain, Multi-Directional Hillshade. The symbol that next to this title is a little piece of paper with a grid on top of it. This is to indicate that it is a raster file. Raster files are made up of grids. Now, let's add this to the current map. Now you'll notice that the Terrain Multi-Directional Hillshade has been added to the map. You can now see it in the Contents pane. Let's minimize its contents. Let's zoom to the DRC. But this isn't the only thing I want to add from the Living Atlas. I also want to add another raster file called Terrain Slope. Well, let's just try typing in slope. Now I want to add this terrain slope map. Add it to current map. This is an interesting looking map. So it depicts the intensity of different slopes. If we go to our bookmarks and select Mount Stanley, for instance, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC, you'll notice all of the slope features. However, if we unselect the slope map, you'll notice all of the 3D features from the multi-directional hillshade. I'd like both of these features to be present on the map, and so what I'm going to do is click on this slope map here and navigate up to the ribbon along the top. On the image surface layer, I'll click on its appearance, and I'll change its transparency to 50%. And now I can see the hillshade beneath the slope map. If we come back to the project and the catalogue here, I've already made a map with all of these editings in them. I'm going to add that map to our view panel just to save some time with editing. Let's close test map now, we don't need it. I'm going to add DRC Mountains. Open. Now, being quite a big War of the Worlds fan, I've tried to make this appear as the surface of Mars, although it's a little bit too yellow. We won't bother changing any of those settings right now, but let's go to one of these bookmarks. And let's zoom out a little bit. It takes quite a while to load because the slope map and multi-directional hillshade are quite large files. So this is the sort of thing that you can do by applying labels and different color schemes to the multi-directional hillshade and slope map. You can make it look quite pretty. These labels have appeared because I have in my databases, in the DRC template database, a point feature called mount. If I add this to the current map, although it is already added in the map, I'll show you its attributes table. It contains a list of different mountains and volcanoes in the DRC with their elevations. Let's deselect that attributes table. As you can see, the points correspond with the label placement. But I've made the symbology for this label invisible so that the only thing you can see are the labels themselves. So let me delete DRC Mountains that I just added, as I've already got it here. I'm also going to delete this chart because I'll show you how to make a chart. If I come into Insert, I beg your pardon. If I click on DRC Mountains and come to Data, I can create a chart. I could create a bar chart if I wanted. Now it's much like Excel where I will choose variables such as the name. I'd like the names to be along the x-axis. And I could choose the elevation in this fields box to go along the y-axis. It's quite a self-explanatory creation process and I won't dwell on it too much. But you can come along here to the axes, the guides, you can change the format, and on the general here you can change the names of these different sections, even getting rid of them entirely. So I might not want name to be on the x-axis there. So I could just disable the x-axis altogether because I've already got the names along the bottom. It's kind of self-explanatory. Okay, so that's how you make charts. You can have various different types of charts as well: histogram, box plot, data clocks, scatter plots, line charts. Now, we don't need this map open anymore. That is, unless we want to convert it to a local scene. So a local scene, if I click on Insert, New Map, I can create a new local scene. This is just a 2D map, except I can move it into a 3D perspective. Let's open up a local scene I've already made. DRC Mountains, Open Local View. This is the local view for the DRC Mountains. Now, let's go to a bookmark so we can view it a bit better. Zoom out a bit. And we can view this in 3D by holding the middle mouse button and shifting the angle of the camera. It may just take some time to load. Another thing you can do in the local scene is by going into the contents pane, go onto the elevation surfaces, which will always be present in a local scene. You can click on ground and go to its appearance on the elevation surfaces, and you can change the vertical exaggeration. So let's change it to 12, for instance, a very large vertical exaggeration. This could be handy when you're planning a route and you need to decide what's the best route to take. You can exaggerate the elevation to really highlight what routes are steeper than others. So if I zoom out now, the vertical exaggeration is severely, or rather, the exaggeration of the land is exaggerated severely. So you can see what are the highest points, what are the steepest points, much more clearly. You can also select shade relative to light position. This is a nice feature because it accentuates the shading in the map. You can right-click on DRC Mountains in 3D and go to its properties. Go to Illumination and change the altitude to which the light is incident on. So if I change this from 90 to 60, for instance, and clicked OK, then the shading on the map will change because the light source has been lowered. The shading is slightly more intense now. Now another view you can open, if I were to go on Insert, New Map, is a global scene. But if I right click on the DRC Mountains, I can open that in Global View, but instead I'll open a new map in Global View. If I were to right click on the DRC Mountains 2D view, I can't open it as a global view because it's not a 3D map. This is exactly the same as a local view, except you also have the added bonus of being able to zoom out and view the globe itself, which is very cool. It's generally reserved for displaying global data though, and you won't be using it much on more of a landscape map. One interesting thing you can do is actually go into space, and then it's quite difficult to find your way back. Oh, goodness. Yes. I swear to you, I did get lost on this once. I couldn't find my way back to Earth. Anyway, let's click off this scene, now I've showed you that. Now we want to go onto the Insert, and let's make this into a map. So let's insert a new layout. You can select the template to begin with. Now if you start on an A0, that's a very large piece of paper, and your labels will appear very small, the point features will appear very small when you add a map to it. So generally I like to start on an A3 piece of paper, because this gives me the option if I want to print the map on an A3 format and not lose much detail. So on this layout you can do a number of things. You can add guides by right clicking on the rulers section here, add guide, add guide. FYI, if you go onto the layout here you can disable the rulers and the guides or re-enable them. You can insert a map frame from a map you've already made. Scroll down and let's use the DRC, or rather let's use the DRC Mountains map. And using the guides we can just select how we want it to be viewed. Now we can actually right click this and click on Activate and zoom into the map, change our position in it. And when we're finished, click on the little X there. There we go, that's nice. We could insert multiple map frames if we wanted to. Like, we could insert, for instance, the local scene that we created called DRC Mountains 3D. Activate this. This takes a bit longer to load, as it's a more complicated map to load. But there you go. Now click X. Other things that you can insert by going onto the map frame format. Our text we can change text symbols and the like. But if we go back onto the insert, we can insert a north arrow. We could insert a scale bar. And a legend. These take a little while to load because my computer's a bit slow. Now if I try and insert a north arrow, you can also include a chart frame. So, there are no charts associated with the default map frame. That's because we deleted the chart earlier on. But if we had created a chart that we were happy with, we could insert it into the map. Let me show you a layout that I've already created to show you its capabilities and what you can do in the layout view. So, in the catalog pane, let's close the maps and go and close the databases. And let's look at the layouts here. We can open up layouts, and we can open up this mountains layout. Let's close this layout. Open up mountains layout. Now you notice I've got an inset map. I've got a 2D map here and a 3D map there. A text box where the chart frame should go, but we deleted it earlier in the demonstration, so it's not showing up. We've got a legend, we've got a north arrow here, we've got some key text and a title. So, while I don't have the chart frame here, I did export this map earlier on, and so I'll show you what it looks like. As you can see, you have the North Kivu mountain elevations bar chart here, which shows the elevations of each mountain. I have a nice 3D view, and etc. Things I've highlighted before. This concludes the fourth demonstration for ArcGIS Pro, and I'll finish on a quote by Henry Hudson. "This land may be profitable to those willing to adventure it."